All right, War of the Spark is out, and I think this was a miss this time. I did not like this set. I was kind of already um, hanging my head low when they said they were going to put a Planeswalker in every pack, and I was just thinking, this is going to be really annoying to play. I mean, there's just a ton of these Planeswalkers at Mythic, Rare, and Uncommon, and some of them do a bunch of cool things, some of them don't. It makes all these like clogged up board states, and it leads to like a lot of situations where you either have an answer or you just lose. Um, but I don't think maybe even the number of Planeswalkers was the biggest problem. I think the biggest problem was that there were just some cards that were super bombs, and there wasn't much you could do to stop them. So, like Liliana, that's a 6 mana card, so I guess it's a little harder to play, but you're constantly creating black zombies and drawing cards, and you can sacrifice 2 creatures, they kill 2 creatures, you draw 2 cards. It's pretty gross. So, if someone gets like a Liliana or anything else off against you, it's awful. Let's see if we can find some examples here. So yeah, all of the gods were awful to play against. Oketra was probably the worst because every creature they cast, they get a 4/4 black zombie warrior creature token with vigilance. And not only do they get that, but the creature itself is a 3/6 double strike. Disgusting. The big problem with all the gods is if you found a way to deal with them, like killing them or exiling them, they go into the library 3 cards from the top, and then they can get it in 3 turns. Or if they have a card that lets them scry, they can scry to it faster. It was really unfun to play with because even if you had exile, which is usually the premium removal effect, it didn't matter. You exiled them, and then boom. They just get him back in a couple turns. So it's like, what's the point? And because of the way creatures worked in this set, it was hard to like put pressure on even if you did kill them and had 3 turns. Kefnet was another gross one. It basically lets them copy spells, kind of like Miracle in the old Avacyn Restored days. When they draw it, they can reveal it, and if they do, then they can cast a copy of it, and they still get to keep the card. So, insane card advantage. The Raise Boar, I really wanted to draw one of these. It's basically like a Goryo's Vengeance type thing, or a Sneak Attack type card, where you play the boar, it attacks, and you get to put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. So yeah, those were sweet cards, but they sucked to play against. So one of the guys I was playing against had Kefnet, and he was like, so what god did you get? And I was like, oh, I didn't get a god. He goes, oh man, you really kind of have to compete. And that's what it felt like. You almost had to have one of these. Let's see what else. There were a bunch of cool cards. But as you can see, we're going to go down this list. There's tons of Planeswalkers, which means there were, like, not enough creatures. It was hard to get a decent number of good creatures. This card was pretty gross. 2/3 flying for 2 white. The abilities barely mattered. But flying ended up being super important. There's not as many flyers in this set. And when you're trying to attack Planeswalkers, having flying to get through really mattered. I had the Elder Spell. It was pretty cool the one time I cast it, and I got to get extra counters on my Planeswalkers while killing their Planeswalkers. It was sweet. I didn't get any Mowu Companion. I wish I did. I think one of the problems was that the removal was weird. There was a couple really powerful removal cards, and the rest just didn't really do a good job. So Trandra's Triumph deals 3, and if you had another one, it would do 5. But really, it does 3. These are sacrifice ones, so that kind of worked on anything, but there were a bunch of little crappy creatures flying around, so um, a sacrifice one wasn't that good because it would kill their worst creature. But let me see if I can find what I'm talking about with the removal, just not really cutting it. Yeah, like this does 1 damage and draw a card. That you never really needed to do 1 damage. This says 2 damage divided as you choose among 1 or 2 targets. 1 damage barely ever mattered. 4 damage was actually surprising because you think 4 damage would be enough, but it really didn't feel like it. It didn't kill this Bulwark Eternal. I guess it kills this Hippo. It doesn't kill the Kravnor or the Dam Breaker. It just felt like even if you used one of those cards to kill something, it didn't really matter because the cards that were really going to end the game were big Planeswalkers or big gods, the gods. So yeah, there just weren't enough creatures in the game, so you had all these spells and Planeswalkers, but there just weren't enough creatures. It led to a bunch of really unfun board stalls. It was cool to get some of these cards. I got a Tameo and a Teferi, but I didn't really get to play them in my deck. But some of these cards, like Sorin, was super gross to play against. Bola, super awful to play against. I had an Ajani. Ajani was okay. Ajani was pretty good. I mean, that -2 really helped when you had a big board stall. Yeah, the sealed really played like you were just waiting to draw your Planeswalkers and your bombs, and you were hoping they didn't. And it just ended up being a really unfun time. It really felt luck of the draw. If you just had a couple on-color bombs or a couple really good cards, you were gonna pull ahead. And then the last thing I just want to say about this set is fixing was terrible. For lands, you had Gateway Plaza and then Interplanar Beacon, but that's only for Planeswalkers. And I actually didn't open either of these in my packs, which kind of stunk. I didn't get a Mana Geode. Mana Geode's actually, I would say, the premier one. When you enters the battlefield, you scry 1, which is great if you have a god, and tap to add 1 mana of any color. So it is ramp. Colorless ramp at 3. This card was very good, but that's about it. This kind of filters 2 mana 1 time, so that can help you cast 1 card. There's a couple blue cards. Like this card lets you add 1 mana of any color and has Death Touch Lifelink. So there's a couple cards in green that helped you splash, but other than that, there weren't many. Vraska's Finisher was better as a 3/2. You almost might as well ignore this text. It never came up, really. Worst Creature was a surprisingly good card because there was just not enough flying. Yeah, Scryforing, draw 2 cards. I mean, that was cool, especially if you had a god or a super good Planeswalker. Yeah, so overall, the set was just way too powerful. There weren't enough creatures. Like, it really felt like when you were putting together your piles, you had a lot of spells. And I get it, some of these Planeswalkers create creatures or replace creatures, but it really felt like a weird set to play. It wasn't much fun. I was disappointed to the point where the GP's coming to my city in Madison here this week, and I'm not going to go play in the GP because it just wasn't fun. It felt like, I think there's 3 outcomes, right? You can, or maybe 4 outcomes. You win by a lot, you lose by a lot, you win but it's close, and you lose but it's close. This set created tons of games where you won by a lot, and tons of games where you lost by a lot. And it didn't have what I feel to be the best part of Magic is like those come from behind victories, those really close ones where they're at 5 life and you're at 2 life and it's a battle and each card could change the whole thing. Instead, it was kind of like just, you draw everything, you drew your really powerful card, you win. I draw my really powerful card, I win. It was not it didn't create those exciting games that I've come to love in Magic. So I don't really recommend playing War of the Spark sealed. But um, I'm going to have to try out drafting it. One of those things that could happen is that a draft, it could be better in draft. Maybe in draft there's ways to like balance it out, or there's just not as many crazy cards going around, and that would help. I don't really know. So I'm going to try drafting it, but I'm going to say for sealed, I don't recommend it. I really hope Wizards turns it around. And they had 2 really good Ravnica sets before this, and instead of just doing a third Ravnica set, they gave us this. And this is really cool. Collectors, I think like kids and stuff are going to love getting Planeswalkers all the time. But to actually play it at the pre-release was pretty miserable. So I hope Wizards steps it up and puts the gameplay first over trying to sell packs with a bunch of Planeswalkers. That said, I mean, the Planeswalkers were cool. So good job on the art, and they're popping out of their frame. That was nice. It just wasn't put in the right set. I mean, they could have spread these Planeswalkers out over, 3 sets. The war could have been 3 sets or something. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and let me know if I'm totally wrong. This is your favorite set. You loved it. You went 4-0 on pre-release. You pulled a foil, the Liana, a foil Chandra, and I'm totally wrong. You can tell me that. All right. Bye-bye.